I sat at the long dinner table, fork halfway to my mouth, when our CEO Marcus leaned over with that warm smile he saved for public moments. The restaurant was buzzing with quiet conversations, wine glasses clinking, and the satisfied hum of our company's annual celebration dinner. 23 employees, plus spouses, all celebrating another record year. "Sarah, I hope that performance bonus helped with your new apartment," Marcus said loud enough for half the table to hear. His voice carried that proud tone bosses use when they want everyone to know they're generous. I froze. My stomach dropped like I'd just missed a step on a staircase. "What bonus?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. The conversation around us seemed to slow down, like someone had turned down the volume on everything else. Marcus's smile flickered. "The performance bonus from last quarter. The one David recommended you for." His eyes darted to my boss, David, who was suddenly very interested in cutting his steak. I felt 20 pairs of eyes on me. My face burned hot. "I never received any bonus." David's knife clattered against his plate. He looked like someone had just told him his parking meter expired. The color drained from his face as he realized what was happening. Around us, conversations had completely stopped. Even the waiter hovering nearby seemed to sense the tension. "Oh, there must be some paperwork delay," David stammered, reaching for his water glass with shaky hands. "You know how HR can be with processing." He let out a nervous laugh that sounded forced and hollow. But I knew David too well. After 3 years working under him, I recognized every one of his tells. The way he touched his collar when he lied. How he couldn't make eye contact when he was caught. The slight tremor in his voice when he was scrambling for an excuse. Marcus set down his fork slowly. "Paperwork delay?" "David, that bonus was approved 2 months ago." His voice had lost all its warmth. The CEO who moments ago was basking in the glow of company success now looked like someone trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. My mind raced backward through the past 2 months. I remembered David's sudden mood shifts, his awkward compliments, the way he'd been overly nice lately. Last week, he'd bought coffee for the whole team just because. 2 weeks ago, he'd praised my work in front of the entire department, saying I was invaluable. I thought he was finally recognizing my contributions. Now I realized he was managing his guilt. "How much was the bonus?" I asked quietly. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from someone else. The restaurant felt too bright, too loud, too public for this conversation. Marcus didn't hesitate. $12,000. He said it matter-of-factly, but the number hit me like a physical blow. $12,000. That was 3 months of my rent. That was the vacation I'd been saving for. That was real money. David's face had gone from pale to gray. He looked like he might be sick right there at the table. "I can explain," he whispered. But before David could explain, Marcus was already pulling out his phone. "Let me call Janet from HR right now. This is clearly a mistake." His fingers moved quickly across the screen, and I could hear the phone ringing on speaker. "Janet? Sorry to bother you at dinner. Quick question about Sarah Mitchell's Q3 performance bonus. Can you confirm when it was processed?" Janet's voice came through clearly. "Hi Marcus. Sarah's bonus? That was processed on September 15th, direct deposit to the account on file. Is there an issue?" The silence at our end of the table was deafening. September 15th was exactly 2 months ago. I remembered that day because it was a Friday, and I'd spent the weekend wondering why my bank balance looked exactly the same as always. Marcus's jaw tightened. "And which account received the deposit?" "The account ending in 4-7-8-9. Same account we've used for David Morrison's bonuses before." David Morrison. My boss. The blood rushing in my ears almost drowned out Janet's words. I stared at David, and everything clicked into place like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. The coffee. The compliments. The guilt. He'd been depositing my bonuses into his own account, probably for months or even years. "David," Marcus said slowly, his voice deadly calm, Care to explain why Sarah's bonus went to your account? David's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Around us, the entire table had gone silent. Even the couple at the next table seemed to be listening. I felt humiliated and angry and confused all at once. There's been a mistake, David finally managed. I'll fix this first thing Monday morning. But his voice cracked on the word mistake, and we all knew it wasn't a mistake at all. Marcus set his phone down with deliberate care. Janet, please check the history on all of David Morrison's team members' bonuses for the past 2 years. Send the report to my email tonight. Of course, Marcus. The rest of dinner was torture. David excused himself to the bathroom and didn't come back for 20 minutes. When he did return, his eyes were red, and he wouldn't look at anyone. The conversation around the table struggled to restart, but everyone kept stealing glances at our end. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite completely gone. $12,000. How many bonuses had I earned and never received? How many late nights, weekend projects, and extra efforts had I put in, thinking my hard work was going unnoticed? Marcus leaned over to me quietly. Sarah, we'll handle this. I'm so sorry this happened. His voice was genuinely apologetic, but I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about the integrity of his company. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker Lisa, who was sitting 3 seats down. Are you okay? Do you want to leave? I looked at her and nodded slightly. I needed air. I needed space to think. But most of all, I needed to understand how long this had been going on. Monday morning came too soon and not soon enough. I'd spent the weekend researching employment law, calculating possible missing bonuses, and questioning every interaction I'd had with David over the past 3 years. I barely slept Sunday night. I arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., 30 minutes before my usual time. I wanted to be there when David arrived, to see his face, to understand what kind of person could look me in the eye every day while stealing from me. David's office was still dark when I walked past. His usual arrival time was 8:15 a.m., after his morning gym routine. I knew his schedule better than my own after working so closely with him. At exactly 8:17 a.m., I heard his keycard beep at the main door. My heart started racing. I pretended to be focused on my computer screen, but I watched him through my peripheral vision as he walked to his office. He looked terrible. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and he moved like someone carrying a heavy weight. Good, I thought. He should feel the weight of what he'd done. At 9:15 a.m., Marcus called an emergency meeting. David, myself, and Janet from HR gathered in the conference room with the glass walls. I could see my coworkers trying not to stare, but the tension was obvious to everyone. Marcus spread papers across the table like he was dealing cards. The audit is complete, he said without preamble. David, you've been redirecting bonuses from 3 of your team members for the past 18 months. The total amount is $37,000. $37,000. I felt dizzy. That wasn't just my money, that was stolen from Lisa and Tom too. My teammates, my friends, people who trusted David just like I had. David's voice was barely a whisper. I can pay it back. With what money? Marcus's question hung in the air like smoke. These bonuses you stole? The salary we pay you? Or did you think we wouldn't notice eventually? Janet slid a paper across to me. Sarah, this shows you're missing bonuses. 3 payments totaling $14,000. 14,000, not 12. There had been another one I didn't even know about. Why? The question came out of me before I could stop it. I stared directly at David, who still couldn't meet my eyes. Why did you do this to us? For the first time since Friday night, David looked up. His eyes were bloodshot and hollow. I needed the money, he said simply. My daughter's medical bills, the divorce, the house payments. I was drowning. So you decided to drown us instead? The anger in my voice surprised even me. Do you think we don't have bills? Do you think $14,000 doesn't matter to me? David flinched like I'd slapped him. I was going to pay it back. When? Marcus leaned forward. You've had 18 months, David. When exactly were you planning to pay back $37,000? David had no answer. Because there was no answer. He'd never planned to pay it back. He'd planned to keep stealing until he got caught or until we quit and stopped asking questions about bonuses we didn't know we'd earned. The meeting ended with David's immediate termination and the promise of criminal charges if the money wasn't returned within 30 days. Janet assured us that our stolen bonuses would be repaid from company funds while they pursued legal action against David. As we filed out of the conference room, David tried to approach me. Sarah, don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. He stopped walking, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been genuine remorse in his eyes. But it was too late for remorse. Too late for explanations or apologies. Did you even write the recommendation? I asked. The one Marcus mentioned at dinner? David's silence was answer enough. Marcus had recommended me for the bonus based on my work. David had just been the middleman who was supposed to process it. Instead, he diverted it to himself and let me believe my efforts weren't being recognized. 3 years of thinking I wasn't good enough. 3 years of wondering why my contributions seemed invisible. 3 years of imposter syndrome, all because my boss was a thief. Word spread through the office faster than I expected. By lunch, everyone knew the basic facts: David was gone, he'd stolen bonuses, and legal action was pending. But the whispers and side conversations told me people wanted more details. Lisa cornered me by the coffee machine. How did you stay so calm in that restaurant? She asked. I would have thrown my drink at him. I laughed, surprising myself. I was too shocked to be angry in the moment. The anger came later. And it had. Sunday night, I'd been furious. Not just at David, but at myself for not questioning things sooner. Did you ever suspect anything? Tom joined our conversation. His face was tight with anger. Because I asked him about bonuses twice last year, and he said our performance wasn't quite there yet. Not quite there yet. I shook my head. He said the same thing to me. Word for word. David had been feeding us identical lies while depositing our money into his own account. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. That afternoon, Marcus called me into his office alone. The corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. I'd been in there plenty of times for projects and meetings, but this felt different. Sarah, I owe you an apology, he said as soon as I sat down. This happened on my watch. I trusted David to handle his team's compensation fairly, and he violated that trust in the worst possible way. I appreciated the apology, but I had questions. How did he even have access to redirect our deposits? Marcus sighed heavily. Department heads have authorization to update banking information for their team members. It's meant to help with things like bank changes or direct deposit setup. David used that access to change your information to his account details. For 18 months? For 18 months. Marcus looked genuinely pained. We're implementing new safeguards. No single person will have the ability to change banking information without secondary approval. And we're auditing every transaction from the past 3 years. The next few days blurred together. Legal paperwork, interviews with investigators, and the strange experience of suddenly having $14,000 appear in my bank account as the company made immediate restitution. But the money, while welcome, didn't fix the deeper damage. I kept replaying conversations with David, looking for signs I'd missed. How many times had he asked about my financial situation? How many times had he seemed relieved when I mentioned struggling to afford something? My apartment lease was up for renewal next month. I'd been dreading the conversation with my landlord about the rent increase, stretching my budget to make it work. If I'd received my bonuses when I earned them, that conversation would have been completely different. I thought about the vacation I'd postponed. The car repairs I'd put off. The times I'd declined dinner invitations because money was tight. All while my boss was literally stealing my financial security. The worst part was remembering the moments when I'd thanked David for his support, his guidance, his mentorship. Every thank you had been twisted by his secret theft. A week after David's termination, I found myself working late again. The office was quiet, most people having left by 6 p.m. I was finishing a project that had a tight deadline, the kind of extra effort that had earned me those stolen bonuses. But this time I felt different about the work. It wasn't just hope that my efforts would be recognized, I knew they would be. Marcus had made that clear in our follow-up conversations. The new systems meant transparency. The new management structure meant accountability. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is David. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. No conversation that would undo the theft, the lies, or the months of self-doubt he'd caused. Instead, I focused on my computer screen. The project I was working on was innovative, something that could really help our clients. The kind of work that deserved recognition and fair compensation. The following Monday, Marcus announced David's replacement, Jennifer Chen, who was being promoted from our sister department. I knew Jennifer's reputation: fair, transparent, brilliant with strategic planning. Her first team meeting was scheduled for that afternoon. Jennifer gathered our team in the same conference room where David's termination had been discussed. The irony wasn't lost on me, but Jennifer's energy was completely different. Where David had always seemed slightly defensive, Jennifer was open and direct. "I know this transition comes under difficult circumstances," she began. "I want you to know that my management philosophy is simple: good work gets recognized, good people get supported, and transparency isn't optional." She looked directly at me when she said it, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: trust in my supervisor. "I've reviewed all of your recent projects," Jennifer continued, "and I'm impressed. Sarah, your client retention strategy was brilliant. Tom, your process improvements saved us significant time. Lisa, your presentation to the board was exactly what they needed to hear." David had never given us feedback that specific or encouraging. 3 weeks into Jennifer's leadership, I received an email that made me do a double take: performance review, scheduled for this Friday at 2 p.m. My stomach clenched automatically. Performance reviews with David had always felt like exercises in finding fault. Even when my work was strong, he'd find ways to suggest I could do better, try harder, contribute more. But Jennifer's review was different from the first question: "Tell me about a project you're particularly proud of from this quarter." For an hour, we discussed my actual work, my actual contributions, my actual career goals. She asked about resources I needed, obstacles I was facing, and what kind of projects energized me most. "Based on this conversation and your work quality, I'm recommending you for promotion to senior analyst," Jennifer said near the end of our meeting. "You've been performing at that level for months, and it's time your title and salary reflected that." I walked out of that meeting feeling something I'd almost forgotten: valued. The promotion came with a 20% salary increase and official recognition as a senior team member. But more than the money or title, it came with respect. Jennifer included me in strategy meetings, asked for my input on major decisions, and trusted me with high-visibility projects. One evening, as I was packing up to leave, Jennifer stopped by my desk. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "How long were you performing senior-level work without the recognition?" I thought about it. "Probably 2 years." Jennifer shook her head. "That's 2 years too long. David's personnel files show he consistently rated team performance lower than warranted. I think he was deliberately keeping you all from advancing." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just the stolen bonuses. David had been sabotaging our careers, keeping us small so he could look bigger. Every "not quite ready yet" and "maybe next quarter" had been calculated to hold us back. Why would he do that? I asked. "Insecure managers often hold their teams back," Jennifer said gently. "If you all got promoted, he'd have to justify his own value differently." 6 months later, I was preparing for the annual company dinner again. Same restaurant, same celebration of our record-breaking year. But everything else had changed. I wore a new dress, bought with money from my promotion and retroactive bonus payments. I sat at the same table, but this time with confidence instead of anxiety. Jennifer sat where David used to sit, and the dynamic was completely different. When Marcus stood to give his annual speech, he mentioned the changes we'd implemented. "This year taught us the importance of transparency and accountability," he said. "We're not just celebrating our financial success, we're celebrating a culture where good work gets recognized and good people get rewarded." He looked directly at our table when he said it, and I knew he was thinking about that awful dinner 6 months ago. During the meal, Marcus approached me again. "Sarah, I wanted you to know that your strategic insights have been invaluable this year. That promotion was well-deserved." This time, when he praised my work, I knew it was real. And I knew I was receiving every dollar I'd earned. After dinner, several coworkers approached me privately. "You saved us all," Lisa said quietly. "If you hadn't spoken up that night, we never would have known." But I'd been thinking about that. I didn't speak up, I corrected her. I was just shocked into honesty. If Marcus hadn't mentioned the bonus publicly, we might never have discovered the theft. Tom nodded. "That's what makes it worse. How long would David have kept stealing if he hadn't been caught by accident?" It was a sobering thought. David's scheme might have continued for years if not for Marcus's well-intentioned dinner conversation. How many other employees, at how many other companies, were being stolen from right now? "The important thing is that it stopped," Jennifer said, joining our conversation. "And we've created systems to prevent it from happening again." "Whatever happened to David?" Lisa asked. "Did he pay the money back?" I knew the answer because the legal proceedings had kept me informed. He paid back about half before declaring bankruptcy. The company absorbed the rest as a loss, but he's facing criminal charges. A year later, I was promoted again, this time to associate director, with my own small team to manage. Jennifer had taken a position at our corporate headquarters, and I was stepping into expanded leadership responsibilities. My first major decision was implementing a policy I called Transparency Tuesday. Every 2 weeks, I met individually with each team member to discuss their projects, compensation, and career goals. No surprises, no hidden information, no wondering if their work was valued. During one of these meetings, my newest team member, Jake, hesitated before asking, "Is it normal for managers to be this open about everything?" I laughed, thinking about David's secretive, controlling style. "It should be normal," I said. "But you're right that it often isn't." I had a manager who taught me, through negative example, how important transparency is. Jake looked relieved. "My last boss never told us anything about performance or bonuses. I never knew where I stood." "You'll always know where you stand with me," I promised. And I meant it. That evening, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. The stolen bonuses had been returned with interest. My career had accelerated once I was working under fair management. My confidence had rebuilt itself from the ground up. But perhaps most importantly, I'd learned to trust my instincts. For 3 years with David, I'd sensed something was wrong but convinced myself I was being paranoid or ungrateful. Now I knew that feeling had been valid. I'd also learned the difference between a boss and a leader. David had been focused on controlling and diminishing his team. Jennifer had been focused on developing and empowering us. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Someone had endorsed me for leadership and strategic planning. The endorsement was from Marcus, with a note, "Sarah's integrity and work ethic make her an invaluable leader." Integrity. The word David had never understood, and the quality that had ultimately saved my career. 2 years after that fateful dinner, I ran into David at a coffee shop downtown. I almost didn't recognize him, he looked older, tired, diminished somehow. When our eyes met, he approached hesitantly. "Sarah," he said quietly. Can I just say I'm sorry?" I studied his face, looking for signs of the manipulation I'd learned to recognize. But he just looked broken. "Apology noted," I said simply. "I know it doesn't fix anything," he continued. But I want you to know that I think about what I did every day. The guilt, it's overwhelming. Good, I said, and meant it. It should be overwhelming. You stole our financial security and our trust. David nodded, his eyes filling with tears. I lost everything, you know. My house, my relationship with my daughter, my career. I can't even get hired as a junior analyst now. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. You made those choices, David. All of them. He stood there for another moment, perhaps hoping for forgiveness or absolution that I wasn't prepared to give. Finally, he walked away, shoulders slumped, carrying the weight of his consequences. I watched him leave and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just, nothing. He'd become irrelevant to my life, a cautionary tale rather than a source of ongoing pain. My phone rang, Jennifer, now calling from corporate headquarters. Sarah. I have news. There's a director position opening up at headquarters. Regional Strategy and Development. I immediately thought of you. My heart jumped. A director position at corporate was a career leap I'd dreamed about but never thought would come so soon. The salary is competitive, obviously, but more importantly, you'd be shaping policy for all our regional offices. Making sure what happened with David never happens anywhere in our company again. Perfect. A chance to turn my experience into systematic protection for others. 6 months later, I was settling into my new office at corporate headquarters, 3 floors up from where I'd started my career 5 years earlier. My first major project was implementing company-wide transparency standards for performance management and compensation. The irony wasn't lost on me. David's theft had ultimately accelerated my career by forcing me to advocate for myself and others. His betrayal had taught me lessons about leadership, integrity, and standing up for what's right. I kept a small framed photo on my desk, a picture from that second annual dinner, the one where Marcus had praised my work and I'd known it was genuine. It reminded me of how far I'd come and why transparency mattered. My assistant knocked on the door. Sarah? There's someone here to see you. Says it's about the new transparency initiative. A young woman entered, looking nervous but determined. Hi, I'm Amanda from the Phoenix office. I think my manager might be doing something similar to what happened to you. I gestured for Amanda to sit down, my heart sinking with recognition. Tell me everything, I said, pulling out a legal pad and preparing to take detailed notes. As Amanda spoke, I heard echoes of my own story, missing bonuses, deflected questions, a manager who kept team members in the dark about their performance and compensation. The same patterns, the same abuse of trust. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, Amanda concluded. But after the company-wide training about transparency, I realized this wasn't normal. You did exactly the right thing, I assured her. And we're going to fix this. I spent the rest of the afternoon on calls with legal, HR, and Amanda's regional director. By evening, an investigation was launched. Within a week, another theft was uncovered, another corrupt manager was terminated, and another group of employees got justice. That night, I stood at my office window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about that dinner 3 years ago. Marcus's innocent question about my bonus had changed everything, not just for me, but for everyone who came after. I raised my coffee mug in a small toast to my reflection in the window. To speak up, I whispered. Even when you don't mean to. And somewhere in the city below, I knew there were other employees working late, wondering if their efforts were valued, deserving transparency they weren't getting. But now, thanks to what we'd built from the ashes of David's betrayal, they had a better chance of getting the honesty they deserved. The empty chair at that first dinner had taught me something invaluable. Sometimes the most important conversations happen by accident, but it's what you do after that accident that defines everything.